Hello and welcome to the Priggya Arora Show, where we discuss entrepreneurship and law with people who have been there and done that. My name is Priggya Arora, founder of PA Legal and Intellectual Property Law Firm in India. And our guest for today is very impactful, Mr. Gene Quinn, the founder of IP Watchdog. So, hi, Gene. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for being on the show. So let's begin with our warm-up question. Who is your favorite fictional character in the legal field?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So, as you probably know, there's not too many patent attorneys or IP attorneys that are fictional. So I would have to say I grew up in the 1980s. So I would say Dirty Harry, and he's not necessarily legal. Do you know who Dirty Harry is? Clint Eastwood. He was a policeman. So maybe not directly in the legal field, but in the justice system. So that was the big movies when I was a kid. So Dirty Harry.
Awesome. We'll go and check it out. I know policemen and detectives are also considered in the legal field. So I think that's an interesting answer.
Yeah. I've always been a big fan, and when you're young and you're impressionable, that's when you really kind of things stick in your mind. And so I've always been a Dirty Harry fan.
Wow. Awesome. So, Gene, like I just told you before starting our recording, that I have grown up reading IP Watchdog. And, I think I am in this profession because I got familiarized with IP field just 8 years back. And the first blog I read was IP Watchdog. So I'm so grateful for you, to you for starting that blog and, making it interesting for all the young lawyers. So thank you so much for that. And with that, I would ask you, tell us something about your journey and anything about your journey that you want to share with us.
So my journey was an interesting one. When I was getting my LLM is when I bought IPWatchdog.com. So I've had it since 1998. I've had the domain name, and it was me and a bunch of my friends. We were going to do something with it, and then they all wind up going their separate ways. So I wound up having the domain name. So I wound up then moving forward and just posting things I was writing, and as I was teaching and using it primarily for students and stuff. But I found that people were reading what I was posting. And then I thought to myself that I could probably turn it into a business. And then at first I started trying to write things to attract clients, and that worked well. And then over time, I turned it into more of a journal, online journal. And so it's been an interesting journey. It's one foot in front of the other. It's not something I set out and planned. It just, opportunity has a way of presenting itself, and you either put one foot in front of the other and move forward, or you stay constant or move backwards. So I've always tried to move forward.
Awesome. I like the idea of moving forward, Gene. And how did you came up with this idea in the year 1998, 1999? I think IP is the field which was unknown or not explored at that time. So what made you, get into IP as a whole?
So I was at Franklin Pierce at the time, and it was now it's the University of New Hampshire has acquired Franklin Pierce. So and that was at the time the top intellectual property law school in the country. And so I'm an electrical engineer by undergraduate degree. So I went there to become a patent attorney. And what we did was we were going to use IP Watchdog. It was sort of the beginning of the internet, right? The internet wasn't around as we know it for all that long, at least the World Wide Web. And what we were going to do is we were going to try and value companies based on their intellectual property portfolios. And our ideas were way ahead of what the web would do. We were going to do video, and we were going to do all kinds of things, and really only lately is video something that can be accomplished. Certainly it was not something that could be accomplished back in 1999, 1998, but we had thought that bandwidth was going to become more plentiful much quicker than it did. So we were a bunch of aspiring patent attorneys who were more entrepreneurial, and that's sort of where the genesis for it came. And then the one thing that I did do when I started writing to try and turn it into more of a business and to attract clients and to build a reputation for myself, which is, all in the sort of the same vein, right? Because for clients to hire you, they have to think that you know what you're doing, right? So you have to build a reputation for yourself. So I tried to bite off something that I knew I could handle, and at the time I was a young attorney and I couldn't handle doing commentary, because nobody wanted to know what I thought about particular cases. What they wanted to know is what the cases actually said, so that they could read what I wrote, the summary that I wrote, rather than have to actually read the case. And then they could form their own opinions, so they didn't really care about what it was that I thought that this case was important or not that important or that sort of thing. So, and I had done that as a lawyer, as a young lawyer, what you do is you will summarize cases, you will write memos to the senior partners and that sort of thing. So I knew I could do that. So for a while, I wrote a one-paragraph summary of every intellectual property decision that came out every week. And as you pointed out, it was a time when it was not that, it was not, I don't want to make it sound like it was easy to do, but today it would be, you would need like a team of people to do that, because there's just so many cases that come out, even, and I was just focusing on the US. But there's just so many cases that come out just in the US. Back in 2000, 2001, there was, maybe 20 decisions a week or something like that. Yeah. And so you could do it. But so that's where I really first started. So what I always encourage people to do when they're starting off and they're trying to build a reputation is do something that you can do credibly. So look at somebody who you want, that you respect, and say, if I'm going to do something, I want it to be useful for that person. I want that person to find it useful. And when you're only like 2, 3, 4 years out of law school, and at that point in time, I was 6 or 7 years out. It's about 6 years out of law school when I started doing that. So at that point, nobody really cares what you think, But you can competently do some summaries of cases, and they'll be more than happy to rely on that. So don't bite off more than what you can chew, and don't try and get to the finish line faster than you should. You do have to pay your dues. Now, if you work really hard, you can, in the internet age, you can build a reputation much faster.
Awesome, Jane. I love the idea of, having an entrepreneur mindset, building credibility and taking steps one after the other. It's like, it's like you said, it's kind of a process that we have to follow. So it may not be, these days we feel like, okay, we have done something, we want the results tomorrow, but that doesn't happen. The reputation building up, it takes time, but it is much faster in the digital world.
Yeah. And it's a big part of that too is, like we're having this conversation via video. You've got fans and I have fans and people that we've never met. And, when they do meet us at a conference or what have you, they feel like they know us already.
Yeah.
Because they've watched us and they've listened to us. One, I was walking, this is before COVID, but I was walking down the street in New York City and somebody stopped me and said, "Hey, you're Gene Quinn." And I'm like, yeah, you think like New York City, I mean, there's like 8 million people there, and it was somebody who had was another patent attorney, and you never know. And I actually, I had another experience one time. I was in a car accident. I caused, unfortunately, a car accident in Pittsburgh. I didn't know exactly where I was going, and I ran into somebody from behind, and the guy gets out and he recognized me. And it was his cousin was an inventor, and he had just been reading my website, and it was, so these types of things are, they're almost surreal. But what it does is it shows you the power of the internet. And so even before video, what I always did is I always had my picture up on the articles that I would write, because it gains familiarity. Because I think if you don't know somebody, you don't think they know what they are doing. If you know them or you're familiar with them, then there's an immediate bias as to think that they know what they're doing, that they're smart, so you can use that to your advantage on the internet.
Awesome, Gene. And to add to this, like I just told you, it's a fan moment for me as well, because 8 years ago when I got familiarized, I think IP Watchdog was the first blog that I started reading. So, and coming to videos, as you said, I always feel this because I keep putting videos on YouTube on intellectual property, on legal entrepreneurship and stuff like that. So people, if they come after watching my video, I think for me, it's like, one step is crossed already. People want to work with me, or they are familiarized with me. At least they know who am I and what is my introduction. So I have to do a lesser job in probably while giving them some advice or something like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It really does help. It helps a lot.
Yeah. So Gene, now coming to, you have worked as a law professor, you're also a lecturer. So do you think your educational influence impacts your blog in a certain way?
Yes and no. I mean, I try not to write like a law professor, because I think, and it's not to say anything wrong with the way law professors write, but on the internet, people like to consume information in short chunks, and a lot of legal writing, particularly law professor writing, it's just very long, and it can be very, very dense, and it has a place, but I'm not sure that it is easily to consume on the internet. So I do think that, ironically, where I think probably my most influence comes from is my high school, believe it or not. I went to an all boys Christian high school. I was taught by Christian brothers. And so it was all men, and they really required us to think for ourselves and to, question respectfully, but to question things and not just always accept what was around us, but to, feel free to push the envelope and to, have open thought and, dialogue and to, so that's what I try and do, certainly on IP Watchdog. So there are a lot of things, of course, over time that, particularly having been a professor, and still I teach a patent bar review course, and then I also teach a course for new lawyers how to actually draft patents and prosecute patents. Spending so much time actually trying to teach, you try and think about, well, what works, what doesn't work, what worked when you were a student, what didn't work when you were a student, and I do try and bring that to bear. And I do think the one thing that I do try and do, and so this is maybe different than law professors who seem to ask more questions than give answers. I try and always give answers, because I think people, they want to know, and they may disagree with you, but that's fine. And that goes back to what I was saying about maybe it's the Christian brothers that got me comfortable doing that. If people disagree with you, that's fine. Because if you come out and you say, I believe X, well, people who agree with you, well, they're going to feel, okay, well, there's somebody else who agrees with me. Great. And the people who disagree with you are now going to, as long as you explain yourself, are going to be much more confident as to why they think you're wrong, because they're going to, you have shown your work and they'll think, well, this is where you made your mistake. So it actually allows for a much more robust dialogue.
Yeah, awesome. I love the distinction that you gave, that there is a difference between how lawyers or law professors write and how a person who builds up content on internet writes, because it's very important to understand. I think it's very important to understand our audience. Like law professors, they have lawyers as their audience, and person who writes on social media or blogs has a very diverse audience. The audience could be lawyers, the audience could be clients, the audience could be people who are interested in IP, audience could be anybody who loves consuming small chunks of content, as you just said.
Yeah, and sometimes the articles that I write, if more people read them, that's great. But I'm writing them for a very small audience. Like I'm writing them for the federal circuit, to read, or I'm writing them for some people at the patent office to read, or, and so what I do think that is very helpful, and this is probably, again, a difference between writing as a law professor, and maybe not, because, like law professors, they're writing law review articles for a variety of different reasons, but when you're writing on the internet, I think what you have to do is you have to start and think, why am I writing this? Why is it important? What does it matter? And who is my audience? And a lot of times what we, at IP Watchdog do, we'll just cover, quote unquote, the news. This happened. This is a case that just came out and we think it's important and we think you might want to know about it. And, and we always try and go the next step, and we say, and we think this is why you might want to know about it. Right. Or we will write, this is what we think the law ought to be, and this is why, or this is what's wrong with the system, and this is why, or this is what the federal circuit got wrong, or this is what, so in those articles, there's always a constituency that you're writing to try and explain your point of view. And I had somebody tell me one time that, I shouldn't be so, because sometimes I get really animated, I get really, excited, and it's hard to believe some of these decisions. Some of these judges come up with I think some of the most ridiculous decisions. It's like, did you actually stop and think about what the consequences of this are going to be? And I had an attorney, and it was a very high-ranking in-house attorney, say that I would be more persuasive if I was less bombastic. And I wrote back and I said, I'm not trying to be persuasive. Yeah. That particular article was not trying to be, because I'm not going to persuade that judge to say, oh yeah, I'm right. Everything I've written on this for the last 10 years is wrong, because that judge or those judges on that panel have a very decided judicial philosophy that I just disagree with. Like, for example, I don't know that it was, but there's some judges on the federal circuit that just don't think software should be patent eligible. There's a lot of them don't think medical diagnostics should be patent eligible. I think that's idiotic, and it also is a very fundamental shift in patent law, over the last decade. And I think it's wrong. It goes against everything we had done for the previous at least 30 years. And, so I'm never going to persuade them. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to persuade other people, maybe in Congress or staffers or, others that's as idiotic as I think it is, So, I mean, that's the big challenge. And all at the same time, of course, when you're writing and doing these types of things, you try and make it entertaining, because we live in a world where people want to not only consume news and information, but if they want to be entertained and enjoy it, right? It's not like, do you remember like Walter Cronkite, or these are US references, but Walter Cronkite, and then there was the McNeil-Lehrer News Hour, which was on public broadcast, very dry. This was what happened today, and it was like just no emotion and very dry. I mean, people don't want to hear that anymore, I mean,
Yeah. I think people associate with emotions more. And like you said, you are very bold in telling that, like software patents, not patenting software is idiotic. And, sometimes we feel this from the bottom of our heart, but we are not able to say this. In India also, that is the case. And in US also, because I have been following that space since a long time. So I think it moves like a pendulum. A wave comes which would say that okay, now all softwares would be patentable. Then a
yeah.
wave comes that will say no, we have given enough software patents, now we'll not give any.
Yeah. No, I know. Like, and I've been a little bit surprised in the US that things haven't changed, because what changed, the US patent system back in like the 70s was really weak, very weak,
Yeah.
even into the early 80s. And what really was the impetus was Japan was becoming this technological juggernaut, and now we see China becoming this technological juggernaut. And I just think that, history's repeating itself.
Yeah.
So I do think at some point the pendulum is going to swing back. It would be nice if the pendulum just stopped.
Yeah, at least it will help us in drafting also, because every time the drafting change, the idea of prosecution, it changes. So yeah, but it's fun. I think it's fun to be
Well, right. I mean, it
juggling
would
with
be,
all this.
yeah, it would be better for clients if the pendulum stopped. But for people like you and I who are actually, commenting on this sort of thing, the pendulum moving gives us something to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jean, now coming back to blog, how do you keep your content fresh and live? I think you have answered this much of it because
Yeah.
of the emotions, but if you want to add something to
Yeah.
this.
Well, it's gotten a lot easier, certainly over the last couple of years, because we've grown quite a bit. And I think you're going to see us grow. Well, I know you're going to see us grow a lot more this year and into next year. We have some stuff in the works, literally at the moment. But we hired Eileen McDermott, and I guess it was at the beginning of 2019, and she's now our editor in chief. So she does just a fabulous job. And if people don't know her, she was an editor at INTA for 5 years, and she worked at the Intellectual Property Owners Association as an editor and writer. So before she joined us, she was a journalist / editor in the IP space for almost 15 years.
Yeah.
And what that did is it let me, because I was the editor and did everything for IPWatchdog.com. And up until we hired her. And so what it did is it let me take a step back from being the editor. And as an electrical engineer, I was not a particularly good editor. I mean, I could, pick articles and do that sort of thing, but, I was not like an editor, like a real editor. Eileen's a real editor. So, and then I focus now more on programs and more on, video, and more on, I'm maybe going to start doing a podcast if I can find some time to do it. I don't know. But we've been doing more of these, virtual programs, which we were going to do more anyway. And then COVID came, and it was sort of, we were already gearing up to do it. So, we just always kind of just are looking for thoughtful contributions from anybody. And then, then whatever gets me going, like when I write, it's a lot of times I just can't get it out fast enough. It's like I'm like pounding the keyboard, that sort of thing. And then ironically, some of the best articles I think I've written too is I refer to it as phoning it in. Now, that's sort of a pejorative, right? Like you phone it in and you're not really trying. But I would and this is pre-pandemic, but I would when I was flying all over the place, I was in the traveling constantly. Sometimes I wouldn't even open my laptop on the plane. I would just take out my phone and I would type an article with when I type with one finger. I don't do the thumb thing. So I type an article with one finger just on my iPhone. And then when we landed, I would email it to myself. And then I, smooth it out. But those types of because it wind up being a commentary, and it's something that I've been thinking about for a while. And it's not like I'm researching a case or anything. It just is like an opinion piece. And those usually are very good because they tend to be things that have been ruminating in your brain for a while, and you just haven't had time to sit down to put it all together. But, if you're flying for 3 hours or, across country or whatever, you can have the time to think about it and put it all together. So sometimes I feel like it's almost like how musicians write music. It comes to you when it comes to you.
Correct. Absolutely. I just love this philosophy because, for developing content in itself is, I think, a tedious task. If I sit down to write content, it's very difficult. But probably when I am speaking with some client or randomly when I wake up, I have a thought on something. And especially when we speak to clients, we know there are so many queries they have, and we can convert every piece into some content and put it for everybody's usage.
Yeah, that's really where IP Watchdog really started to grow, is when if you get the same question from more than one client, the likelihood is you have a lot of people that have the same question. They just haven't asked it yet.
Correct.
So I would write articles that would answer the questions that clients were asking me. And then when they would ask the question, I would tell them the basic answer and say, and read this. I have a longer explanation here. Send them the link. And then after they've read that, then we would have a more in-depth and informed conversation, and that would go very well. And they seem to like it, and it would convert them into actual clients rather than just prospective clients. And it's easy because those are conversations you have all the time,
Yeah. Absolutely. I think we have done this in the form of written content, and now future is the video. Do you think like the future would be podcasts and videos, or the future would be the written content?
Yeah, no, I do think the future is video. I think so what we're doing now, we're trying to publish some more podcasts that people do in the legal area. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get them to then write at least a 600-word summary or article that describes what they talk about in the podcast. So like in a podcast, you may talk for 30 minutes and some of them may be longer. So, but if you want to get found in Google, for example, it still is tough other than by the description or other than the title. So I think that because you see because what I've noticed is, some of the bigger publications, what they'll do is they'll put, and we're starting to do this too, they'll put the podcast player in the top of the article.
Correct.
And then they'll have an article about the podcast below it.
Correct.
And then so people who want to listen to the podcast, they can listen to it right there. But then if you just want to read the summary, then it's right there as well. And so I think that there's some thoughtful ways you could do both. And then of course you want to index your podcast with whatever, a variety of different sources that people can just download it from their favorite provider.
Absolutely. I think this is the best strategy because then we are focusing on keywords and we are also focusing on videos and audios. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you're doing it like this is smart because, when you're doing the video like this, you can separate the video from the audio and turn it into a podcast.
Yeah.
And then also put the video rather up on a YouTube or LinkedIn as well. So I think moving forward, different people are going to consume information differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everything has an audience. People who like reading would love to read. People who like watching YouTube, they love to watch video. And people who like listening to podcasts, they listen to podcasts. So we have a diverse audience, and I think it's there on every platform.
Right. No, I think that's right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, Jean, now, like you have been in the industry since so long, what do you think is the future? What would be the primary focus of the technology-based innovation? And how do you see which technology would be the most impactful technology, and what people will do with technology in future years?
So, okay, so I mentioned I'm an electrical engineer, so that's going to be probably informs some of what I say here now. But I think, and I don't know when it's going to happen, and it almost, because we're just inching forward here. There needs to be a real lurch, and there will be at some point in time. But I think hopefully during our lifetime, we'll have a big lurch forward in battery technology.
Awesome.
Because if we have a big lurch in battery technology,
Yeah.
then so much is going to be possible with,
Yeah.
because right now, alternative energy is simply not a replacement.
Awesome.
And that's not a dig on alternative energy. I'm a big fan of the outdoors. I love the environment. I plant trees all the time. I love being outside. I love nature. And I would love to get to a place where we and I think eventually society will get to a place where alternative energy runs everything or almost everything, probably with backups, different things. But the battery technology is quite limited right
Yeah.
now. It's gotten a lot better. But if we have a breakthrough in battery technology, then you can harvest the energy when the wind is blowing, when the sun is shining, and store it
Awesome.
for later. And then the other thing too is I think, this is remarkable how far we've come, is with solar concentrators and solar technology. That just continues to get better and better and better. And I think that will continue to get better as well. So those are the two big things I think, moving forward, that'll really potentially change the way we live and help the environment and everything. I think it'll help everybody.
Awesome. Today you have given such a good answer that today morning only I was thinking that why do we need charging points and plug points everywhere? Why can't technologies just run and provide energy? I think in near future, probably before I die, that would be there in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I think right now, it's political right now, unfortunately, right? I mean, we're not there yet. A lot of the political forces want to act like we are there now. And then people also seem to think that, it's going to be free. Well, it's not going to be free.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to have to pay for the electricity. I
Yeah.
mean, but it will be, I think it'll be certainly better, more sustainable, and cleaner.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, or it can be
Yeah.
cleaner. Those are the technologies that are going to need to be developed, right? Because a lot of the quote unquote clean technology right now, if you know how it's actually made, it's what they do to the environment to make these technologies is anything but clean.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, you got to start somewhere. And so I think that path is going to be a very important path moving forward. So I understand going down it, but I also don't think we want to cut our nose off to spite our face and just, say, okay, we're going to stop oil right now. It's like, because then we'll go back to, living like cave people.
Yeah, awesome. So, Jean, now let's move to our quick 3, 2, 1 rapid fire. So, we have 3 questions and
Sure.
quickly. So, 3 things you are grateful for.
Oh, well, certainly I'm grateful for my wife Renee. She just had her birthday. Her birthday was yesterday. She turned 50, so we just had a big celebration. So I'm grateful for having met her, and she's been a great partner, and she works with me here at IP Watchdog. So I'm certainly grateful for that, for her. And grateful for grateful for having so many friends. You know, I think the IP space, there's a lot of really genuinely nice people, you know, and so the colleagues I have, I think, are just great people. And you know, it's really fun to get together and be around them, you know. So work events, you know, these programs, or when you get together, they actually are fun. I mean, nobody really likes travel unless it's, you know, you're going on vacation. But once you get where you're going, it's fun to be there, you know, because the people are nice, you know. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm extremely grateful that everybody like you and others have always supported IP Watchdog, you know, because without the support of you know, the people in the industry, it wouldn't be worth doing. We couldn't do it, you know. So very grateful for everyone.
Awesome. Now, two traits or habits you think are very useful for people who work in our field.
So I think probably one of the most important traits, I think, has to be I'm trying to think how to say it, you know, because you don't want to not strive for perfection, but you have to realize that clients rarely have a budget that is going to allow them to achieve perfection, right? So I think you have to have the ability, and so I think that this is a trait. You have to be able to say yes and not no.
Yeah.
Right. So so if a client comes to you and says, look, I need a patent on this technology or invention that I think is going to be important, but I've only got, you know, $10,000. And if this is a $20,000 project, you can't say no, but you have to explain to the client, well, I can't give you $20,000 worth of service if you only have half the budget, you know. But I think you can still help that person, you know. So I think what people need to do is think like an entrepreneur or business person, and realize that as a startup or entrepreneur or business person, there's never enough money and there's never enough time. So you can't allow the inability to be perfect to be the enemy of accomplishing anything.
Yeah.
So that kind of thinking to help the client. Now, I don't think you can let the client think they're getting the perfect solution when you know they're not getting the perfect solution. But, you know, I think it's a relationship. It's a team. You want to work together with them. Now, a lot of clients don't want that, you know, particularly the large clients you work for. They're going to give you, here's this. I want you to write this application and give me a patent. But the smaller businesses and startups and inventors, and they really do need help, and they need to know, and they need to grow. So I think that there's a lot of attorneys that miss that opportunity to help. So that's one thing I think that really, and there's a lot of traits that go in there, you know. It's entrepreneurism, it's creativity.
Correct.
That's the one I think that probably is most missed in our, certainly the patent field. You know, you got to be creative sometimes, both with the budget and the ability to get the work done.
Great. So we'll consider two traits as entrepreneurship and creativity.
Yeah, I think that those go a long way. And then I think you also the ability to listen. You know, you have to listen to, because you might think you know what they need, but if you don't listen, you know, and ask the right questions, then listen to the responses, you're never gonna know for sure.
Absolutely. So now, one aspiration you have for the future.
So we're in the, professionally, we're in the middle here of really turning the corner and turning IP Watchdog into a full-fledged media company. So we're gonna bring that, I think, through to fruition by the end of this year. And so I think that you'll see things we're gonna ratchet up the game again
Awesome.
between now and the end of the year.
Awesome. I wish you all the best for your aspiration. I am there to support IP Watchdog by any means I can.
Well, great. Well, thanks. You need to write some articles, and maybe we'll get you to post a podcast or something.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. So, Jean, now last question that is, we conclude by saying that what are some key takeaways that we can give to legal professionals or people who want to enter into legal entrepreneurship or probably start their own law firm?
So the first thing I think I would say is, as an entrepreneur, I think that's a great idea. To the extent that you can get some experience with another law firm first, that's probably helpful, so that you're not just starting on your own, not knowing how to operate. But sometimes that's not possible. So I would always encourage people not to be afraid to take the leap. That's number one. Number two, probably the biggest issue that I see is, a lot of times when people start their own firm, they get maybe sometimes a little bit too close to the clients, because your first clients, you wind up maybe doing a little bit too much work for, and maybe you don't charge them for everything that you do, because they're your only client to start with or something like that, or they're one of your few clients. And so you got to set the expectations for any relationship right away, because if you don't charge them enough, then they're going to come to expect that. So that's you want to keep a very professional relationship with the clients. And then the other thing is, if you don't know the client, you want to get paid in advance. You don't want to do the work and then go chase the client, because lawyers have a way of getting paid last.
Yeah.
So you want to get paid up front, and then do whatever in your jurisdiction allows you to take the money. In the US, you have to put it in trust and then do the work, and then you can take the money from trust and pay yourself. But you want to get paid per day, not perhaps. I always tell people.
Yeah, awesome. Per day, but not perhaps.
So those are a few things. And then if you are going to start your own firm, and certainly particularly like if you're a solo or whatever, having a network of people that you can ask questions to as things come up, that would be a good idea, because things will come up, and there's not going to be another attorney down the hall you can go to and ask a question, but so maybe try and find a few other people that have similar situations and organizations locally. In the US, there's a great organization. It's the National Association of Patent Practitioners, and they're all individuals or small firms, and they're very active, and they help one another with questions and stuff like that. So, and I'm sure that there's those kinds of local groups all around the world, and they can be a real lifeline for people starting a firm, who don't have the backstop of being able to ask a senior partner, hey, have you ever seen something like this?
Yeah, awesome. So what I'll do is I'll try to reiterate the points you said. So first is gain some experience, and then don't be afraid to take a leap. Take a leap, get paid well. Don't be afraid to ask money. Take advance if you don't know the clients, and have a good network, a strong community to support you. I think if you take care of this, it would be awesome, and you'll be flourishing with the clients and your work and your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. That's a perfect summary.
Thank you so much, Jean, for being on the show. I am absolutely grateful from the bottom of my heart that I got a privilege to have a conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It was a great conversation.
Hey there, thank you for joining in today's session. If you enjoyed our conversation, do follow our channel and consider sharing it with a friend. My name is Priggya Arora, daughter of inspiring parents, alumna of IIT Kharagpur, engineer turned lawyer and entrepreneur, and now founder of PA Legal, where we help creators and innovators protect their intellectual property. Thank you.